Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? Yeah? Is everyone caffeinated? Thank God. Well, there is plenty of coffee afterwards. So there were some incredible talks yesterday, weren't there? I was so impressed. I learned so much, and I didn't actually go to any of the talks. I was just hearing people who went to the talks send it back to me. It was really, really impressive. I have some stuff to say, but before I continue my preamble, I've got someone I want to introduce who's going to say a few words. Jenny Tozy has been the most passionate supporter and advocate of the games industry in Film Victoria we've ever had. During her time at Film Victoria, Jenny has overseen the continued growth of the games production and marketing funding, which have funded a huge variety of games that have been released all over the world. Jenny's constant support has been absolutely incredible, particularly for me personally, because Jenny oversaw the creation of the International Fellowship Program, which enabled me to go and work at Obsidian in the States. And that was instrumental in putting me on the path to where I am today and putting me on this stage, so thank you. She then oversaw the creation of the Women in Games Fellowship, which has been through several iterations now and continues to support the absolutely stellar women that we have in the state of Victoria. There's also an info night at the beginning of November for those who are interested, and the next round is open early in the new year. Jenny has been a force for change in support of games within Film Victoria, and it feels only appropriate to have her here today. Welcome to the stage, Jenny Tozy.
Trick, I'm talking into this. Thank you, Liam, for those really kind words, and I have to say it's just been enormous fun working with the game sector. You're certainly the most innovative, creative and passionate practitioners that we've got in the sector, and you certainly still have a lot to be able to pass on to the film and television sector, which is playing catch up in a way that all of you in the game sector have led the charge. And I look forward to seeing that collaboration happen in the years to come. So, good morning and welcome to day 2 of Game Connect Asia Pacific 2017. I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather here, along the beautiful banks of the Yarra, and I pay my respects and thanks to their elders past and present, and to elders from other communities who may be here today. So 12 years and stronger than ever, GCAP continues its reputation as Australia's premier game development conference, and it's certainly a highlight of Melbourne International Games Week. This year's theme, The Ripple Effect, certainly registers for the team at Film Victoria, where we've been supporting games in one form or another since the late 90s. And, you know, to Liam's point, it's been a real pleasure to be able to assist the games industry. I'm just the face of Film Victoria, but there's a really big team at Film Victoria that is as passionate about the games sector as I am, and that goes back to Amelia King and Brad Giblin and Clara Reeves and Liam Rout, who's here today. So you're really well supported if you happen to be in Victoria. If not, you might want to think about relocating here. From a small start, we have certainly seen the industry here in Victoria expand significantly, and I'd like to congratulate the many companies and creatives we've supported over the years on their achievements and success. The total value, as you no doubt know, the Australian games industry now exceeds $2.9 billion, and we're chuffed that Victoria is able to claim the largest share of this growth, which to some extent is the result of Film Victoria's investment into the sector over the past 15 years or so. Victorian companies, along with their interstate counterparts, have excelled at responding to the changes, challenges and opportunities that have arisen in the global market in recent years. And as a result, we continue to see really impressive levels of success for our local games businesses. The message in this is that taking a little risk and a lot of commitment pays off if you're prepared to stay the course and work hard. I have no doubt that is why all of you have made the time to be a part of GCAP and Melbourne International Games Week. Speaking of hard work and commitment, I'd really like to acknowledge the tireless efforts of the GDAA CEO, Tony Reid, and what he has achieved for the organisation, its members and the games industry more broadly, both here and internationally. Tony is just, a really dynamic advocate for the industry, and we've certainly had a lot of fun working together, and he's just a great communicator, really just embraces what the industry needs, and wanting the industry to be commercially successful and not reliant on subsidy, which is a really important thing. Subsidy can be a great trigger, but it's not something you want to rely on. You need to be independent and vibrant in your own right and tap into that subsidy when you need it, but try and work as much as you can around it. And I do think that what is achieved for the GDAA and the game sector has been just extraordinary. And the same can be said for a dynamic woman by the name of Giselle Rosman, who embraced the games community with a force that is nothing short of the best Jedi in the universe. And I think she's equally worthy of acknowledgement. Congratulations to Liam Esler and everyone in the GCAP team for creating yet another terrific program this year. I wish I had more time to spend at the sessions. They just look so informative and inspiring. It's truly a community-driven event and focused entirely on the needs of the industry, which is really important. Thanks to all the guest speakers for generously giving of your time. The sharing of your experience, knowledge and advice provides enormous value to your colleagues, and I know everyone here attending will appreciate and find inspiration from this. I hope you all have a great, fun and second and final day of the sessions here at GCAP, and I certainly look forward to what GCAP will deliver in the years to come. Can I say to you all, again pinching from Star Wars, keep the faith. I know that you will all find great success in achieving your career and business ambitions if you do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Film Victoria supported the international speaker program here at GCAP, which has allowed us to bring over a variety of different speakers both this year and last year. So thank you also for that. The GDAA has had an incredibly busy year. But because we're so heads down, sometimes we're not that great at communicating what it is that we do. We are working to get better at that, I promise. But I thought I'd take the time this morning to sort of tell everyone what we've been up to. But before I talk about anything else, the GDAA sent out a survey earlier this year. And while it's still ongoing and the results are being scienced, yes, that is a word. And I have to stress that this stat is gonna change, but I do have a favorite stat. So far, the Australian industry is 20% women and 1% non-binary. And that's a really exciting figure, particularly in comparison to what the census tells us, which is the Australian industry is 15% women. We are progressing. We are moving forward. We're becoming more and more diverse day by day through the efforts of everyone in this room. So thank you for that. As I was saying, we've gone through a lot this year. We've done a lot of different stuff. I'm going to reel through just some of the things that the GDA has been doing. Tony went on a territory visit to Korea and Japan and met many people, some of whom are actually here at GCAP today as a result. We sent a massive trade delegation to GDC with over 50 companies. We ran the Aussie networking event at GDC, which is like one of the best events at GDC, if I do say so myself. We've been speaking to other industry groups in film and TV, and there'll be more news on that soon. We ran GDC Assist and gave away 25 passes to GDC. And this year, we've got 15 passes to give away. We'll be announcing that fairly soon. We went on a Gamescom trade mission with 15 companies and a bunch of delegates from the International Trade Office. We moved the arcade in March to South Melbourne. And actually, the arcade is going to be forming its own company that's going to be self-managed, allowing the GDA to sort of focus better on supporting every territory and state in Australia, and we're incredibly excited for that. Our office has been a revolving door for government this year. We've had countless government representatives come through, as well as, I think, 13 or 14 international dignitaries as well. I actually think everyone at the arcade is getting really, really sick of us saying, like, you have to dress nicely, like, please clean up your offices, like, don't leave any, like, bottles and cups around. But the result of that is there are some really exciting conversations that are happening in the background. We've done a lot of work on educating government about the game sector. And as Tony was saying to me this morning, it's actually quite surreal to be sitting across the table from Scott Ludlam and many others like him, sort of talking about games for hours on end. People get really into it, weirdly enough. And finally, I'm going to talk like the thing that we all care about, you know, government funding. The GDA has been in talks with Minister Fifield's office, and the Office of Communication and the Arts. There are lots of conversations that have been ongoing for the past few years, and progress is being made. We provided a confidential submission to the Screen Content Review. We're talking directly to the task force running that and Minister Fifield's office, and becoming increasingly confident that change is coming. We've been working hard for years on this, and it's paying off, and hopefully we'll see results from that very soon. We've also been talking to a lot of Australia's screen agencies and intend to continue those discussions moving forward. Screen Tasmania and Screen Queensland helped get people to GCAP this year, and we're incredibly excited at their continued interest and support in the sector. I'd like to thank all state and federal government representatives who are actually here with us today. Your support is invaluable, and without you, you know, well... So, now I get to do something really cool. I get to welcome to the stage a man who has been a pillar of the Australian industry for certainly as long as I've been around, but actually a lot longer. His talks are always a favourite at GCAP, and his commitment to both his work and his beard are awe-inspiring. Tony is always the final arbiter of the GCAP theme, and so we knew we had to ask him to help Keynote this year. Tony Albrecht is an incredible human being, and I'm so excited to hear whatever he has to say today. Please welcome to the stage, Tony Albrecht. Thanks, mate. Good luck.
Yeah, no pressure. Liam, can I ditch this? I've got a weird hybrid Frankenstein type system set up here, which I might explain later. Hi, my name's Tony Albrecht. I am a senior engineer at Riot Games, which I think is awesome. Tony Reid spoke to me back at GDC earlier this year, and he mentioned the theme for this GCAP. And I thought, ripple effect. That brings to mind a flow of people and colleagues over time. And I had this image in my mind of, you know, a big map and little arrows flying everywhere and just plotting this entire thing. So I had this fantastic idea of how it would look. But I thought, well, would it be interesting? What's the take home? What's the point? I mean, me talking about where I've been in my career and the people around me is incredibly self-indulgent, and I'm not sure it'd be that interesting. So I thought about it quite a bit and then forgot about it because GDC parties got distracted. And then when it was re-announced, and I thought, okay, well, what's the take home? I thought about it and I just distilled it down to a single line, and I tweeted it. Basically, don't be a dick is a really good takeaway. Building a network and influencing and being influenced by people, it's surprising how far your influence travels. So what I decided to do was plot that. So I jumped into LinkedIn, and I had a look at the remoting API for that to see if I could scrape out all the information that I needed. I couldn't. So I then stepped in and manually went through the resumes of a lot of my colleagues over the last 20 years. And I put it all into a big spreadsheet, and then I thought, okay, how can I visualize this? So I looked around and tried to find some applications that would do what I wanted. There was nothing. So I wrote my own from scratch, which is what this is. So if it stops working, yeah, I spent more time writing the code for this than I did actually writing the talk. So I've been around the Australian industry for a while. I'm by no means one of the original game devs within Australia, but I have been here for a while. So I'm going to talk a bit about why I'm here, and I want to look at, like I said before, the flow of the people around me. So I'm also going to put my iPad into sleep mode because people are tweeting. All right. Okay. So because I wrote this, my speaker notes had to be somewhere else, so I'm actually using my iPad for that, and then I'm also, because I'm using the internet, I'm using my phone to leech all of that, so it could fall apart at any moment. So, 1997. I was a late starter getting into games. When I went through high school and university, there weren't games courses to do. It wasn't a career. You didn't have a choice to do that type of thing. So 1997 was the year that I decided that I was going to actually write games. The trigger for me was my father getting cancer. And I realized how short life is, and we need to take every advantage we can to do something that we love and it's important to us. So I decided I was going to make games, and I was going to make money out of writing games. Because I've been making games since I was a teenager, but they were never, a real thing. So it was kind of like a midlife crisis, a little bit early. But I was working in mining and defense then. I was programming, doing graphic stuff, and that was all cool. I got headhunted, I got more money, that was awesome, and I hated it. Absolutely loathed it. I had no pride in the work I was doing. My colleagues had no pride in what they were doing. I had no connection with my colleagues. It was soul-destroying. I was actually driving home on the 1 hour commute, and I was actually in tears that I hated it that much. And I made a decision. I decided that when I wake up in the morning and I think, I can't bear to go to work today. I don't want to do it. That's the time to start looking for a new job. So I quit, and then I spent a couple of months traveling the world because that's what Australians do. And I came back invigorated, inspired, and I started working on some games, working on demos. So this is Adelaide, by the way. That's where I was based when I started. So this is the first GPU I got to play with. This was 3D Effects, the Voodoo one. When they came out, it was groundbreaking. And I had to have one. I had one of I think the last one in the first batch that came into Australia. I started programming on it straight away. And I was building cool demos in 3D, and it was so much fun. So, for any context, I wasn't working at this time. I had some money saved up from the jobs I'd been doing, and I told my friends and family that I was going to write games for a living. They thought I was crazy. Why would you do something? Why would you waste your education? Why would you waste your skills on something so trivial as games? It was just something I had to do. A friend of mine said once that you don't write games because you want to, you write them because you have to. You have no other choice. There's lots of other ways to make money, good money. So I'm in Adelaide, I'm writing demos in my bedroom, and I had a couple of near misses with startups that didn't quite work, and I had a plan. I figured out how I was going to actually get into the games industry, because there wasn't much happening that I was aware of within Australia at the time. I was going to go to GDC, and this was my plan. Step one, go to GDC, right? I knew I could do that. Step two, stuff happens. Step three, job. But then this happened. 1999, they announced the first Australian Game Developers Conference. And this was like, oh my God, I have to go. I can spend $15,000 going to San Francisco or $1,000 and go to Sydney. And so I went to Sydney and I didn't know anybody. I was just wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. There was, I think Chris Hecker was speaking about the mathematics of a ponytail. And as a maths geek, I was like, yeah, that sounds so cool. But I went there and I met so many people that were like me, right? Like all of you. And I realized something, that over time, there's been this pursuit of people that are like me in a lot of ways. When I was in primary school, there was no one like me. When I was in high school, there was one other kid in 1,000 that liked to program like I did. When I got to university, there were more people like me that liked the things that I liked, that liked board games, that liked D&D, that liked video games. And then stepping out into work, I found more people that were like me as far as programming was concerned. And then all of a sudden I'm at this conference and I'm surrounded by people that love the same things that I love, that get me, and I got them. So AGDC was very different back then. I met some people that are key people that kind of flowed through the next 20 years of my career. That some are here today, actually, and some I work with. And there's a story I like to tell about the first AGDC. We had our dinner on that first night in Sydney. The hotel was just off of King's Cross. And we had our dinner. It was all very formal. There was drinks and food, and it was all nice. And by the end of the night, they brought out these packages, and in the packages were guns. And the guns were like, they were little Nerf guns and sucker guns that you could then shoot people with. So the entire formal dinner devolved into this two sides attacking each other across the room. Tables were being turned on their sides, people were taking cover, there was like flanking maneuvers happening. It was just like playing an actual video game, but in real life. I foolishly, with my shaved head, took the suckers and stuck them on my head so it looked like Darth Maul. I thought that was hysterical, until I realized the next day that it actually left little love bites all over my head. It took about a week for them to go away. So one of the attendees was, Intel was there, and I think it was Kim Pallister was there, and he got a bit carried away with the guns and shot one of the security dudes there. And he was evicted from the dinner, and that was the first and possibly only recorded case of Intel outside. Thank you. So I'm at AGDC, and I've got a 3.5-inch floppy. For those youngsters around here, that was a device like a USB, but it had a moving platter inside it. And on this disk, I had some demos that I'd written, a little game, some other demos that showing off some of my 3D skills that I thought was pretty impressive. I managed to show it off a couple of times, and on the back of that, I actually landed a job at Ratbag. So this is Adelaide. This is Ratbag. All right. Oh, good, it worked. So we started here. It was actually there. I actually put in lat long coordinates exactly, and there's some floating point precision error, so it's a little bit off. So I told you I spent too long writing this. So I started at Ratbag Games, and it was awesome. We were doing a PS2 game. We were porting an engine from PC to PS2. And I got to learn all this amazing stuff and this incredible new hardware, and the people there were really friendly and open. Because of my father being sick, I actually started the job saying, look, I may need to leave soon for my father's illness. And that happened very early on, and I have a fond memory of sitting next to his bed in the hospital with the PlayStation 2 manuals and reading through and understanding how the VUs work and the EE and the GS and all that stuff. So basically, Ratbag was a little bit green. We didn't really know what we were doing, but that's kind of normal. And we lost a few of the senior programmers very early on. So this is one of my friends that left, and he started work at Pandemic LA. So This is what I spent all the time writing, by the way, all the arrows and buttons and things. So much fun. So we were left behind a core team to actually figure out how to do everything. Take this engine and make it work on PlayStation 2 from PC. And it was awesome. We had so much fun. The team, and there's some ex-rat baggers here today, I think. Can you raise your hands? One here, one back there. Where else we got? Where's Kimbo? Nah, he's probably hungover. So there's still a few of us around, and surprisingly within the industry, not just within Australia, I bump into people that I've worked with, years and years ago. This was a local bar, hidden down the back there somewhere. We were figuring stuff out, and we were going to conferences as well, AGDC, every year, and learning, meeting people, growing our networks. And then 2003, I was lucky enough to go to GDC the first time. It was in San Jose. They were alternating between San Francisco and San Jose at the time. So I went to San Jose, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. I didn't know who I should be talking to. I had no real perspective of who were my peers within the industry. I was kind of a little bit lost, but it was still amazing. I went to these talks and saw these incredible people talking about incredible things, and I was just so inspired. And I came back to Adelaide, and I had ideas, and I started implementing these ideas. And about that time, I started speaking at AGDC. This hairless young man was me about 2003. Now, I'd apply every year, but I wouldn't always get to talk. Primarily, I think, because I wanted free tickets, and I also make sure that my company would fly me in to actually, to go to the conference, which I saw as a fantastic way to go out and party with friends and have a few beers. I actually realised, writing this, that, who went to the Disunity gathering on Monday night? There's a few of you. I was doing that back in 1999, and I've been doing it ever since. It's just an excuse to get other people to drink with me. But I'll talk about drinking later, by the way. So there are some significant effects of speaking at a conference. One of them is you start to really understand what it is you're talking about. The best way to learn something is to actually teach it. You get the deep dive, because speaking in front of your peers is terrifying, because people in the audience know more than you do, potentially. So you want to make sure that you totally understand what it is you're talking about. I'm going to own up here, be honest, I once did a talk at AGDC, which was almost completely fabricated. I had submitted a talk that I wanted to do, and it was to do with some tile-based rendering stuff, working on PlayStation 2 that was feeding off of some very simple, fast stuff that worked on the vector units. And we'd actually scheduled to make this thing work. I had submitted the talk proposal before we'd actually written it, but the schedule said it'd be finished well before the conference. We didn't get it finished in time. So when I gave the talk, it was still theory. It was things that were supposed to work, and it was horrible. I was so nervous, I felt so bad, and the questions that came out, I couldn't answer properly. So my tip to any of you that want to speak at a conference, make sure you've done the work beforehand, be completely prepared, and make sure you understand what it is you're talking about. So, two things you get from speaking. Knowledge, you're getting to share it, you're getting to understand it in a deeper way than you would have normally, but also your reputation. Your reputation grows. People watch you, and if you don't do an awful job, then that helps, all right? They remember you. If you do a bad job, they don't tend to remember you as much, so it's not that bad. So, wrap back. Things were going great. We were releasing games, we had good tech, we had good people, good management, everything was going fantastically. Then August 2005, we got bought out. All right? Big international publisher, Midway, bought us. So we had financial security with backing from a strong international player. Working on a game, it was a massive IP, it was based on a movie, had huge potential. 4 months later, they shut us down. 2 weeks before Christmas. That sucked. Seeing your game dev family just ripped apart in a day is horrendous. But what was cool was how the rest of the Aussie industry stepped in to help us, to support us, to to take us on and to work with them. You know, people were calling, there were emails flying everywhere. Studios flew into Adelaide to interview us, to help us find work, and that was fantastic. So because of that, people left. They moved. They travelled. They spread to the winds. You know, it very much was this. It was a spreading of ideas, spreading of talent to the winds, all right? These seeds started to pollinate around the world, and those seeds have taken root, and amazing things have come from them. Some seeds died, you know, they started to work in banking or where else. But looking back and seeing the technology and the skills that we'd learned as a studio, and because I'm a programmer, I'm aware of the technical talent that we had. Some of the stuff we built back at Ratbag has been reimagined and evolved into things that have been used through Team Bondi, through Pandemic, through ArenaNet, through even Riot, are using variations of the technology that was, we piloted this stuff back at Ratbag. We weren't the first to invent it, but we used that stuff. So what I'm saying is we have these good ideas that live on, and they've grown and become really useful products in the long run. The bad ideas just wither and die. You know, that the time shows what happens. So 2006, Ratbag spread to the winds. You know, we're no more. I ended up going to Pandemic in Brisbane. Which one's the Brisbane one? Nope, that's the LA one. There we go. I travelled there with some other friends from Ratbag, and I had friends that were, you know, again, all over the world. People went to Chrome, people went to Rockstar, Splash Damage in, where the hell's that? London. Yeah, there we go. Even Relic and just all over the place. So at about that time, social media was starting to take hold as well. So it became easier to actually talk to and maintain connections with people that were on the other side of the world. And that, I think, is pivotal or integral in actually maintaining the connections that you've built over time. And it's really allowed networks to grow, these initial little twigs that come out have become really solid with communication and over time. So, what's my next bit? So yes, 2006, Pandemic. Oops, skipped ahead. Ignore that, I can't go back. I didn't write that code. So I'm in Pandemic, I'm in Brisbane, moved the family there, and there were a lot of internationals there, a lot of Canadians, people from all around the world, from different studios, and so they bring all these other ideas and their own connections, and we're learning from them, and they're learning from us, and again, it was inspirational, and I'm building this family of game devs that, again, these people love the same things that I love. So every year I'm traveling to AGDC, and I think 2005 or 6 was when it changed to GCAP. I continued to work at Pandemic, lots of fun, learning new stuff. And that was about the time that I actually moved back to Adelaide as well and started working remotely. So my skills at maintaining communication virtually through social media and whatnot were kind of honed through necessity. So 2008, people have been traveling. They're moving all over the place. This is the network that's growing without me really trying. Okay, these are my friends, the closest people that I work with, and where they've gone to. 2008, January, EA bought out Pandemic, promising financial and creative security. I wasn't concerned. We were working on a game. It was a massive IP. It was based on a movie. It had huge potential. I went to GDC in 2008, and I met up with some friends that I'd made back in 2009 at the first conference. I remember having a meeting with these guys in I think it was a Mexican restaurant, and I was so jet-lagged. And we were talking about the potential of working together. So me working with the pandemic and this other team, us working together on the PlayStation 3 version of the game that I was working on, the one that was a massive IP, huge potential. So the fact that I was talking to these guys was because I'd met them back in 1999 and maintained connection over the years. So that was cool. We had we could work together. This could be amazing. And that year as well, other things happened at that conference. I went to an IGDA party, and I met a guy. We started talking, and I found out he worked on a game that I loved, Super Stardust, and we geeked out talking about how he was doing this stuff. And he gave me a ticket to the Nordic Gamers party. Skid Row were playing. Skid Row were an 80s hair metal band. And it's just like, yes, I have to go. So I went there, and I took one of the guys I was chatting with about this future work. He came with me. This party was in the middle of the Tenderloin. For those of you that don't know San Francisco, Tenderloin's a little bit of a dodgy area. Kind of scary at night time, and it's often best not to walk through there. So we walked through, and I remember walking along, and we're cool, you know, we're big guys, we're fine. And we walked past a little deli, and this little old lady comes out, and she's shuffling along behind us. We're waiting at a corner to cross the street, and the little old lady's standing behind us, and she's just cackling to herself. She's giggling, and she says, "You boys are in the wrong part of town." Yeah, but so I got to the place where the party was, and I showed my ticket, and I was hoping to get my friend in as well, but it was booked out. So I went in and I looked around and saw this party was awesome, and there was free drinks, and there was music and dancing, and the right thing to do was to go outside and go back through the Tenderloin with my friend. I was a bit of a dick, and I said, "Sorry, I have to stay. I'll see you tomorrow." Tyrone, sorry. He's here today, so. So I went back in, not thinking about my friend who's walking alone through the Tenderloin, and having drinks at the bar, and I'm wearing my pandemic shirt, and this guy comes up and says, "Where'd you get that shirt from?" And this guy looks like a bit of a Viking, but it was the Nordic Gamers party, so most of them were actually Vikings. And I explained, I work for Pandemic in Brisbane. And he said, "Oh, wow, I work on this. So we're actually sharing some tech." So I met the rest of the team there, and we drank together, and we went outside and we talked, and we built a little bit of a bond. We made a connection. And so that was really handy, because soon after that, EA shut down Pandemic Australia. Even though we had a game based on a massive IP, a movie, and it had huge potential. I remember, because I was remote, I was sitting in my office, and I had like ICQ, which is like an old-fashioned Slack. And it showed little light. It was green for people that were active, orange for idle, and red if they were disabled. So what happened was, there was a meeting, we were told that studios were being shut down, and that people would get called down to HR and be spoken to, and they'd find out what was happening with their future. So I was sitting in my office at home in Adelaide, and I'm watching the little lights on my chat as they slowly went from green to orange to red. And I knew when they were red that they'd left. And they forgot to call me. I didn't know what had happened. I was left in Adelaide, and they hadn't told me if I had a job or not. Which was pretty crap, because I just paid the mortgage on my house the first time. I just bought a new place. So I was petrified. It was horrible too, it was traumatic. I managed to stay on with Pandemic for a while longer. The guys that I'd met in LA, I ended up working with them. Now, a few other of my friends did as well. So it wasn't just because I'd met these guys at the Nordic party and had some beers with them. It was because they knew me a bit better. There was a face associated with the name, and they also knew that they could trust me a little bit. So, is it nepotism? Okay, hiring somebody is a balance. Okay, it's ability, it's culture fit, and it's trust. You can see here what Herr Trump really values is trust. and he trusts his family, which is why he's employing people like that. Ability is irrelevant, okay? But in the real world, ability is important, but then so is culture fit, and so is trust, okay? So meeting people in the face, expanding your network at parties and gatherings and conferences is a fantastic way of actually showing that you have a culture fit, showing that maybe you're trustworthy. You can tell a lot by talking to somebody. So I didn't just get the job at Pandemic LA because I've been drinking with the guys. It made it a little bit easier for that to happen. So 2010, when we shipped the game we're working on, they shut down Pandemic LA as well. So I was cast to the wind. But fortunately I had a network and I had a job offer from Sony in the UK on the same day that we were let go. Because I'd been talking to people beforehand, because I had a network. So that was cool. I got to work with Sony and I got to travel around Australia and I got to teach devs how to use PlayStation hardware, which was my favourite hardware. It was an awesome job. And I got to meet so many people in so many studios around Australia. And every year, I kept going back to GCAP. And I kept going to the conference and I kept speaking and meeting people and making friends. In 2010, Chrome closed its doors as well. That happened on the last day of GCAP. I think it was on the Gold Coast. And the news came out and there were people there from Chrome. And I was like, it was horrible, again. That was a dark time. A lot of the closures of studios was an impact of the GFC. Australian dollar was high, big companies were panicking, and they wanted to cut costs. So the first thing you do is you cut the cost of the people that you don't know the faces of, the edges of your network. And that happened to be Australia. So that was hard, okay? But the death of these big, older studios was the birth of indies, okay? The GFC was the asteroid that collided with the Earth, okay? And it killed the dinosaurs. And what's risen has been the mammals, the more agile, nimble developers that can take risk and can do interesting, fun stuff. And they're here today, and these mammals are getting bigger now. It's awesome. I'm going to stop with that analogy because I don't know where it ends. So still, people, my friends, the network's growing. People are traveling everywhere. 2011. Things weren't really working out well for me at Sony. I loved the people, I got on well, but we weren't really helping each other. I was spending a lot of time working on just random stuff. So we had a mutual decision and I decided to quit and basically do what I was doing for Sony, but for myself, through my own company, and use my network in order to try and find work. That's terrifying. I'd been blogging for a while, I did more of that, I did papers, I did more talks, got little bits and pieces of work, and then I got a job, a long-term contract at THQ in Brisbane, which, funnily enough, was in the same studio that Pandemic was in. So when I visited, I was back in exactly the same place that I was a few years before. And this long-term job, I wasn't worried because they were working on a game which was a massive IP. It was based on a movie, and it had huge potential. End of the year, THQ was also shut down. It doesn't get any easier. When a studio folds around you, through often no fault of your own, it's hard. It doesn't get easier. So around this time, the little mammals that had bred from the corpses of the dinosaurs were spreading across Australia, and they were starting to take hold, they were starting to produce games, and they were surviving and thriving. These are brave individuals, in my opinion. Starting your own studio, which a lot of you here have done, is terrifying when you know how hard it is and how many things can go wrong. But people did it, they had the experience, they had the networks, they were agile, they could take the risks that they needed to. So I like to imagine that the explosion of the indie studios around this time looked something like this. One of the things that has helped with this is building these networks within Australia as well. Things like hubs like the Arcade have allowed smaller studios to meet other studios like them and to spread based on their networks and to grow based on that. So you can leverage other people's networks for your own. Now, I kept traveling. The purple ones are pretty much me. I'm still writing stuff, I'm speaking at conferences wherever I can, and the more conferences you speak at, the easier it gets to actually get jobs speaking. It doesn't make it easier to actually speak, but yeah, it gets easier to do talks in other places. So I was kind of building a reputation, but what I felt like I was doing was making friends. I was meeting people that loved the same hardcore, low-level tech that I did, and I was growing with them. At about that time, GDC became about not so much the talks, but about re-establishing bonds with friends, about meeting people and maintaining those connections. This brings us up to now. This network is 22 people. Okay, this is by no means all the people that I've worked with. And it encompasses 57 studios. There's a lot more that these people work with that are not actually on there, because I had to type all that stuff in and it just took forever. This is the organic growth of a network due to co-worker drift. This is not about meeting people at functions like this and growing your network. This is just the people you work with. This shows how far 1 degree of separation is, okay? If I'm good at my job, then there's 57 companies that can ask somebody in their studio, is this person good at their job? And they'll know, okay? If I'm bad at my job, there's 57 studios that aren't going to work with me. So obviously you want to be good at your job, if you can. You want to build your ability, okay? There's ways you can do that. Education, practice, experience, finding a good mentor. It takes time and it takes effort, but that's what you want to do. But that in itself is just not enough, okay? You don't want to be just good, you want to be known to be good. It's also not just about you being good at your job, it's about you being good to be around. You don't want to employ someone who's brilliant who's an arsehole. They're not fun to work with. I hope I'm not an arsehole. So, you want to market your ability like a game. If you have a game, it can be the best game in the world. If no one knows about it, it's not going to sell. So you need a way of saying, hey, look, I can do this stuff. I'm good at what I do. So you want to build a reputation. You want that to spread. One way to do that is to attend conferences and meet people. But you're not doing this in a purely self-serving manner. You should be humble. Okay, you're meeting peers people that could have been in the industry for 40 years, that know their stuff. You want to be humble. You want to be honest. Be friendly. Be respectful. Okay, you really want to make a good impression, but you want to be honest. Okay, there's a portmanteau that people at Riot use, which is humbitious. You want to be humble and ambitious. And that's so true. You want things for yourself, but you want to be humble about it, okay? Own what you don't know. If you don't pretend that you're good at something when you're not, if someone explains something to you and you don't know it, be honest, I don't know what that is. Talk to other people about your game dev field of expertise. Learn from other people too. There's so much information out there, and make friends. The other thing is, go to the parties and gatherings, all right? This is GDC 2003 or 4. AGDC, sorry. That's me with the shaved head and very, very short beard. I only realised this last week. The girl standing behind me, I haven't spoken to her yet, I think I spoke with her at Tehran this year. And I didn't actually know her name until I met her in Tehran. And I didn't know she was at the same place I was. So that just freaks me out. It's a small world. These connections, these people flow backwards and forwards into your life over time, over and over again. So parties are important. My record at GDC is 7 party invites for one night. I managed to make it to 5. But the key thing with parties is that they can be this drink fest, okay? Be careful. Don't drink too much. You want to maintain some level of sobriety, not because you want to be able to deal with it the next day, and you want to go into talks and not fall asleep and start snoring in the back row. You don't want to make an arsehole of yourself either at these things. So be careful with what you drink. What I do now, I mean, I know I've had too much at parties before, and I hope I haven't made too much of an idiot of myself. What I try and do now is, when I think I'll have one more drink, that's the last drink. I've had enough. I don't need another one. So hopefully that works for somebody else as well. Now, this is like, was a camp being the drunk uncle and giving advice. So, building reputation. Speak at conferences. That's a big key thing. It gets you so far. This is in Tehran earlier this year. I got to speak at that conference because I'd spoken at other Games Connection conferences in Paris and Shanghai and other places around the world. And I got to do those because I'd written an article that based on a talk that I did at GCAP. And that article got read by a lot of people, and it became an important part of transitioning my career into being, I suppose, an expert in the field. Small things come, big things come from small things. You know, when I wrote that paper in the first place, it was just so I could learn something and understand it. And what came out in the end is this ability to be a programmer that gets to travel the world. It's insane. So, building reputation. Speak at conferences. No one will know what you can do unless you show them. You're marketing yourself. But speaking at a conference is hard. How do I get there? People, when you want to talk at a conference, you'll be saying, this is what I want to talk about. And you will have people that are choosing these talks will look at your history and what you've done. So the best way to look like someone who knows what they're talking about is to actually share your knowledge. Write articles, do podcasts, be active on forums. It doesn't just, you're not just helping other people, they're helping you. You're getting feedback, you're growing, you're learning. It's so important. Go to game developer gatherings in your local area, and if there isn't one, start one, okay? Surround yourself with people that are kind of like you. Let's say the 5 people closest to you, if you take their salaries and average them, that's your salary, all right? That's what they say. I don't know if that's true, but I like the idea of it. Similarly, within game dev, you surround yourself with people that you want to be like, and be like the people that you want to surround yourself with, okay? Be generous with your time. Treat other people like you want to be treated. So, now, 2017, I'm lucky enough to work for Riot, based in Santa Monica. It's an amazing company, working on an amazing product. People actually know the game that I write now, which is, I'm not used to that. And they don't just love the game, they're insane about it. And that is, as a programmer, getting feedback from players about things that have changed, slight things, is fantastic. I absolutely love it. So this is a huge company, it's spread worldwide, it's thousands of employees. And you know what? There's 4 people there from Ratbag, okay? One of them was a guy I met in 1999 and became my best friend. And he bumped into me at GDC a few years, like 4 years ago. And from that stemmed work and me getting to work at a place that is amazing. So, game development is a passion to many of us, not just a job, but a job we love, or that we strive to love. Treat people around you with care and consideration, with respect. Surround yourself with people that you want to be like, and be like those people that you want to be surrounded by. Your network will grow rapidly. Make sure that the reputation that spreads with that network is a good one. Years ago, I made the decision to quit my job because it was soul-destroying. And I swore that day, if I woke up and thought, damn, if I have to go to work and I don't really want to, I'm not going to do it. That's when I quit. I still live by that. I've actually quit a few jobs because of that. But where I am now, I love the people around me. I love their passion, their skill, their personalities, their diversity. It makes me a better person. My work is hard. What I do can be exhausting and stressful, but it is so rewarding. And I hope that this talk will give some of you the perspective to make solid choices moving forward in your careers. And you can enjoy this industry as much as I do. And taking my first slide, don't be a dick, which is a kind of a negative direction, flipping it to something that I think is a positive directive. Be excellent to each other. Thank you.
Let me maneuver things here. Thank you so much, Tony. That was incredible. I noticed that there was a lot of things there that sort of have echoed in my career as well, and I'm sure that everyone in the room feels exactly the same way. So I've got a few pieces of housekeeping before I can let you all leave the room. Some of you may have noticed that the schedule went down. Very exciting. So for the past 20 minutes, while I've been in the front row on my laptop, I put together a backup schedule, which is now on the website. So if you just go to gcap.com.au, click the schedule link, there you go. Because there have been some schedule difficulties, I'm just going to quickly call out some of the Microsoft talks because they've been switched around a bit. So at 11 a.m., there's a talk on HoloLens, which sounds amazing. 12 p.m., we've got Azure Game Services, so working with the cloud. At 2 p.m., we've got the do's and don'ts for independent devs on ID at Xbox with the program director of ID at Xbox, Chris Charla. So if you're thinking about getting on Xbox, that's the one to go to. And finally, at 3, we've got blockchain and gaming with David Barella from Microsoft Australia. Blockchain is a super interesting technology, and I definitely recommend checking that one out. I'm also going to call out Cheetah Mobile has a talk on getting to 100 million users if you are interested. There's one cancelled talk. Unfortunately, one of our speakers was unable to enter the country, which is always exciting. He sent me a very disappointed email at 12 a.m. saying that he'd been sitting in an airport drinking for 12 hours. And I want to remind everyone that we have a very strict code of conduct that applies to all of our networking events, so please keep an eye on your behavior and behave professionally at all times. Finally, the AGDAs is tonight, the Australian Game Developer Awards. I'm so excited for you all to see sort of how Australia's games industry has fared this year, what's looking good, what's looking amazing. And that will be held at 8 p.m. at the Park, Melbourne. Delegates, media, speaker, and host badges will get you in. And make sure to bring your badge, otherwise the bouncers will turn you away at the door. Sorry. Also, it might be worth eating beforehand because canapes don't really count as food, as some of you may have found out last night. So I'm going to leave it there. I want you all to have a fantastic day. Get the most out of it, meet new people, have a great time, and I'll see you later today.